It is March 26th, 2022. Hope you're well. Today we're going to talk about our conditioning. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Because we're all conditioned. We are all kind of programmed, you can say. It's kind of very similar. A very similar idea to what we're talking about here. So and those things depend on how we were raised and the people that were around us, the situations, the conditions that we lived in, and the situations that arose, and all those kind of things. All of those things we were born as a blank slate, but over time, it's not blank anymore. And a lot of the lessons that we learn are useful to us and healthy. And some of the things that we learn or adopt are helpful to us as a matter of surviving certain type of situations, or a matter of dealing with certain emotions that come up in us that aren't pleasant. We learn how to maneuver ourselves through those different conditions, and so then we're adults, and here we are, no longer a blank slate, far from it. And we find that some of the things that we learned along the way were very helpful, useful, and beneficial to us. And so they helped us to play on our strengths that we already had, that just were there waiting to be nourished, and so they could bloom and help us grow into a happy, healthy person. And some of the things, as we said, were a matter of survival, or dealing with situations that maybe were traumatic. And those are the things that really, they're really interwoven throughout the personality that we have now developed. The finished product, but not really finished, but finished as of right at this moment, from through that time period, what was built. So the thing is, as we mature, we start to understand some of the things that are not in our best interest, that we have collected along the way or developed along the way. And so a lot of people are in therapy. It used to be a thing for, people who are woohoo, whatever, right? Not really, but that's what it was looked at as. But now it's encouraged, it's highly encouraged for practically everyone, just to, sometimes we don't speak out loud, or we don't allow a voice to the stuff going on deep inside. We just kind of move through life and stuff gets covered over. But therapy can be very useful because it helps us to uncover things that kind of lie hidden beneath the surface, and that really do affect our dealings, even though we can't see it. When you're in it, you don't understand it so much. But when you're talking with someone who has learned about human psychology and all those things, they can help us to explore what is all in that luggage that we're carrying around with us. So it can be very beneficial, very helpful to us if we're serious about really, really digging deep and understanding what makes us tick. But as we said, those things those behaviors that we learned, those mindsets that we learned, all the things that were, survival based, those things now can actually hinder us from our development if we're trying to grow into the person that we really are, i.e., the person without all the extra stuff that we took on to survive situations, to get through situations, to help us to not crumble. Those things that maybe were helpful for us in the moment, now they're extra weight, and actually they're just on. And so that means if it's just on and running, well, you're going to be in situations that don't necessitate those responses or those thoughts or feelings, but because they're lying deep inside, they're still active, even though we're not cognizant of that, and they get in the way of our relationships, of our relationship with ourselves, through the mind talk, the way that we speak to ourselves, that can hinder us. It, like we said, it gets in the way of relationships. It gets in the way of our further developing abilities that have lied dormant within us, because certain fears have kind of built up walls, and so we're only able to move so far when we've got these walls of fear. They really do get in the way, and so that's a challenge. It's a real challenge, because, as we said for the third time now, these aspects are deeply interwoven, because oftentimes they were developed early on, as in childhood, and so they actually become part of the fabric of the personality. And so getting in there and discovering them and understanding it, really honestly, is painful. It's painful for whatever reason, because it's all connected. And so those things are connected also to whatever the situations were, not in our conscious memory, but we carry memories throughout our bodies. This is something that they've been understanding for at least decades now, as far as I am aware, that we carry memories throughout our bodies, not just in our conscious mind, where a lot of times we can't remember things. It's just like right on the corner of our memory somewhere, but it's just a shadow, but it's there. So these memories are not asleep. And they, as we said, they can really hinder us as we're trying to really get back to who we truly are, without all of the luggage that we've been carrying, all this heavy burden that we've been carrying around with us. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy process, and it's not like, okay, this is Tuesday, let's get this wrapped up by Saturday. Or even to say, let's get this wrapped up by next year. It's just, it's a process, and it takes time. It took decades for it to develop, and so we can't expect that overnight all that these things are just going to vanish magically away, or whatever, or solve or heal. Now, something we're going to talk about now is one of the ways that these things can hinder us when it comes to our relationships with others, because sometimes there are miscommunications that happen with people, disagreements, or outright fights, like real fights. Just this kind of aggravation, annoyance, irritation that's happening between two people. And this is just the speaker's opinion, based on my own personal experience with this, as you know, coming from me and dealing with others, is that a lot of that miscommunication, that kind of dominoes into aggression and hurt feelings and fighting. Oftentimes those situations happen because of the things that we were just talking about. Those things that are deeply ingrained in us now, they pop up because somewhere in the communication or in the conversation, something was pricked. And we don't even know what it is. We just know that now we're pissed, okay? Some tender, open wound was jabbed at by the other person, even if it was unconsciously done by them, especially if it was unconsciously done by them. Usually it's done unconsciously by them to actually prick. And well, we're not going to say usually, but oftentimes to actually awaken a thing. And by the way, even if it's someone's intention to do that, if it's not something that's already lying within us, it's not going to happen. So we did one of these years ago on intention to hurt others, and we said, you know, if your intention is to come at me and pull me down with this particular whatever you're saying or doing, and I don't have that vibe going on in me, it's just going to bounce off, or it's just going to dissolve or bounce off and go back to you, because you resonate with that feeling. So you have that feeling in you, it'll bounce back to you and poison you, where I'm just going to walk away. So just because somebody has an intention of XYZ doesn't mean that it's gonna be satisfied, because if the other person is not vibing that way, it's not. But anyway, back to the subject. So what happens is, so oftentimes a person will say something. This happens with me all the time. And when I say all the time, I mean practically every day. It's really, really frustrating, because my way of communicating is a direct way, and it's neutral. It's neutral. I'm just kind of a matter of fact kind of person, just like, okay, boom, in conversation, and not realizing that just not softening things sometimes, or just being so direct, it can stab another person, or it can, well, let's just put it this way. The other person who's receiving the information from me has some open wound or something, and my style of communicating can irritate or stab that wound, sometimes pretty badly. And then I'm sitting there like, whoa, what did I say? What did I say? And not really realizing that, you know, I unintentionally said something that that hurt the other person. But unfortunately, we're going to wrap this. It's getting long anyway. We're going to wrap this up for now, and we'll continue with a part 2 on this for sure. But anyway, that's about it. Hopefully this has been informative to someone. As always, we want to wish you much love. Bye.